Good news, everyone! I found some really good force feedback settings for my direct drive wheelbase in Forza Motorsport. Now, I've based this on the Ferrari 488 GT Challenge car that I've driven in real life. And I have to say, it is really, really, really good at delivering the feel to me that I need from the tyres. Now, I ripped up my old settings. I thought I'd try and come up with some new ones. I had to look at other YouTubers, but just for some reason, none of the other settings work for me. I don't know if it's personal preference or the way I'm dialing it in, but I can tell you this sensation I'm getting now is very similar to when I drove this car for real. And I did crash this car for real. So I know what it's like to go beyond the limit of grip. Now I need to explain to you what I've done to every setting, because I've tweaked all of them and the philosophy behind it, and also what you can do to tweak for your various wheelbases as you're watching. So I really hope you're going to enjoy this. I'm going to go into advanced settings. By the way, Forza just keeps resetting my inputs every time I start the game. So annoying. So make sure you go in steering, get rid of your dead zone. You do not want that. Have no dead zone there, because you're going to control it anyway. You might want to have a dead zone for the pedals, but I've taken it off for the throttle. Call it the throttle and brake. Don't call it deceleration. Anyway, I did 85 just to cap it at the top end because I'm on a stiff load cell here. Right, here we go. So I'm going to go through every setting and explain why I've done it, and also how you can adjust it. So vibration scale, this is one of the global settings I would do at the end. So some settings I would do at the beginning, some at the end. I would do this at the end. This will deliver the different sort of feel of the force feedback. You'll know what I mean when you adjust it. I've maxed it out here because of the way I've set it up. I want to have that maxed out kind of detail. Now the next one is force feedback scale. I put this one at 100. Again, I think this is pretty much the last setting you should do, because everything you do underneath this is going to deliver the force feedback into your wheel in a way that can be overpowering or underpowering depending on your personal preference and depending on your wheelbase, like the strength of your wheelbase. I'm running this on the Moser R9. You might be running on a Moser R21 or the new Fanatec, what is it, Club Sport DD at 12 Newton meters. Or you might be running it on a Thrustmaster T150 or a Logitech G29. So do this at the end to adjust really that ultimate strength that's required. If you're getting thrown about by your wheel, direct drive wheel, I would lower this, because it will actually smooth out a lot of what you're perceiving as these kind of juddery moments. And if you can't feel it at all, I would increase this. So it's possible that if you're on a belt driven or gear driven wheel, you might actually need to increase this on your setting, just to let you know. Now, steering self-alignment, this is one of the magic sauce ones. So I would keep this ratio the same. I would keep the ratio I've got between steering, mechanical and pneumatic the same. This is, to me, a really good balance of the sensation you get when the tyres lose grip. And what I'm looking for, by the way, all I really want from the force feedback is I personally don't care too much about going over different patches of the tarmac and, you know, all this kind of stuff. I want to feel what the tyres are doing. And broadly for me, that's going around corners and when I'm on the limit of grip and when I'm starting to oversteer. So what these settings will give you is they'll give you the sensation of you'll turn in, somewhere like Catalina where I just was, in a lot of medium speed corners. You'll have a heavy sensation as you're using the grip of the tyres. And then as you go over that in a MR car like the Ferrari, where the back end wants to come out, rear wheel drive, engine in the back, it will start to lighten, and you'll see and you'll perceive that with, you might get a bit of tyre squeal, maybe not, depending on circumstances, but you'll see the horizon sort of shift relative to where you are and where your hands are, because it will start shifting more. And then it will have a little bit of wobble as you start to chew up the tyres that way. Does that make sense? So it'll be heavy on the turn in, heavy. Imagine turn 1, 2, 3 at Catalunya, heavy on the turn in. And as you start to get a bit of oversteer, which you really want to do if you want to get into slip angle, that's why it's so important to have really good force feedback settings. So as you get into that slip angle, it will start to go lighter in a predictable way. And then if you start to bring it around too much and you start to chatter, you'll get that through the wheel. So you might see me in the camera here get a little bit of that. It's hard to really perceive through the camera. You need to feel it yourself. But that's what I've kept the same. I messed around with all these settings independently, up, down, middle, different combinations. A lot of the time it just gave me not enough at the low end, so it just wouldn't give me enough resistance when I'm turning in, so I couldn't really feel the start of where the grip is. And sometimes it would just be way too jerky, so there'll be a lot of jerkiness between going having the grip and then not having the grip, you just sort of lose it all, and then it would, and then you straighten up to correct it, and then it would come back again, and there'd be these really weird, like, heavy sensations of force feedback and not progressive. And when I drove this car in real life, everything was super progressive. It's the nicest car I've ever driven anywhere, and it's just everything is super smooth, progressive, and detailed. It's not juddery. So that's why I've done it like that. Wheel damping and center spring I put to 0 here. I've done different settings where I've used the center spring. I think on the Mazda, because it just works for me better on the Mazda, but I wanted to have the philosophy where I didn't use that here. So I've turned that down to 0, and I've done the settings around it. And we've got the feel for the Ferrari 488 GT Challenge. I put the wheel damping at 0. This is one of the last settings I was changing, and it got me into that perfect spot at 0. I did have this up sometimes at 50 and stuff like that, but here I kept it 0. And then dynamic damper I've kept at 50, and I've kept all these at 50. And this was something that I locked in quite early, and it seems to give me a balanced feel. So I'm getting used to these settings now. I want to just keep watching if you don't mind. I'll explain what's going on. You might find it really helpful. Make sure you subscribe as well. I know so many of you are. So I get sensations now. I can feel the wheels spinning, which is great. There's not a huge amount of resistance here. I think a lot of the other settings I tried from other YouTubers, they want a lot of resistance at a lot of the time. And in my experience, that's just not what happens on a track. Like, the steering is often very, very, very light in this, as you might expect. So coming around some of these corners, you get, by the way, a break in the force feedback when you shift up. That's quite pronounced in these settings. You might not like that, so just bear that in mind. You can see there the chatter and the new layout here. Ooh. Now we come around the last corner. Heavy, 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 lighter. So it went heavy, 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 light there, and I just want to be in that light area where I know that I'm not asking the tyres to do too much, but I know that I'm generating a little bit of slip angle. So coming in here to the first corners. Heavy, light, heavy, 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 light, 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 chatter. Heavy. Getting lighter. There we go. Heavy. Lighter. And now I can counter steer. Chatter. Heavy. Getting lighter. So basically, when it gets lighter, you're aware that, hang on, I'm bringing it round. I might need to counter steer. And that's a really helpful sensation when it comes to driving with the force feedback, because it means I'm tuned in. And, you know, if I was driving without force feedback, like my original T80 I started streaming with years ago, didn't I? Then I'd be too late for me to counter steer and save it. So that's what I find. Look here how light the wheel is. The wheel is super light at low speeds. Super light, as it should be. And as you're going through medium speed corners, it will get heavy, and that is personal preference. It's how much you want to feel. When I drive an iRacing, I drive with it quite heavy. So to show you going up here. Heavy. Lighter. And now I can feed it. Oy. It's a great track. It's like really heavy. Now lighter. And I could just feel a little bit of the tyres juddering at the end. So you go through grip, no grip, grip, less grip, which is where we want to be, on the edge of grip, really, I should say. And then you're just washing wide. You're asking the tyres to do too much. That's the fundamentals of what I've done with this force feedback setting. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Your comments are invaluable on this. Can't wait to hear from you. I really hope this helps, because it's a good game underneath all this force feedback nonsense. And I'll see you in the next video.